Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD, here today to bring you the latest updates we have on a horrific story. Again, we hear the term active shooter, and we've become sort of numb to it. Oh, where did this happen? You know, an active shooter at a high school in Winder, Georgia, Apalache High School. And this happened on Wednesday morning. The shooter, 14 years old, a fellow student. His name is Colt Gray, and he killed 4 people. He killed 2 teachers and 2 of his co-students. We'll put the pictures of the Mason Schermerhorn, age 14, Christian Angulo, age 14, Richard Aspinall, a teacher, math teacher, Christina Arimi, also a math teacher. And it could have been, as they always say, this could have been a lot worse. But in this case, the school resource officer confronted the active shooter and he surrendered. Or else it could have been much bad, much worse, I should say. You know, it seems like we understand how to respond to these. In fact, the response was remarkably quick. Bravery of the school resource officer and law enforcement responded so quickly because they just instituted some of the most up-to-date security features on this school. And they have a system called Centigix, which each faculty member has an ID card. And they press a button on it, and it will signal to security that there's a major problem. The police will also be alerted, and it'll lock the school down. And that system, as well as the bravery of the school resource officer, is credited with saving many lives. And again, we understand how to respond to these incidents. Sorrowfully, yeah, because we get a lot of practice across this country. But what we have to do is figure out how to prevent these from happening at all. When people from other countries hear about these active shooters, they're baffled. Well, how does this happen so often? How does young kids get these guns? In this instance, a 14-year-old little baby-faced kid there on the screen. His name is Colt Gray. Acquires an AR-15 and could have decimated and did much more decimation than he did. He already destroyed the lives of 4 people and 4 families and an entire school, and just making an entire state grieve for something so unnecessary. So we're going to break this down. We're going to see where we are today. We're going to talk about how we can prevent these active shooters in the future. But until then, hold on to your hats, hold on to your drink, hold on to your family members, your service dog, your service cat, whatever you have, because you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone. The police off the cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
You know, I have the great privilege today of having a wonderful guest who I've had on numerous times in the past. and she's a criminologist and a doctor from, what's that school again? St. Thomas University in Miami. And Dr. Debbie Goodman has been on all the news channels as I like to describe them, talking heads, and she knows what she's talking about. So without further ado, let's invite Dr. Debbie Goodman. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Bill and the viewers. It's always a pleasure to join you, but this is a heavy, horrendous conversation today. And if you would kindly allow me to pay the condolences to the families of Mason, Christian, Christina, and Richard, it's just astonishing, shocking, and so saddening that here we are with merely 3 weeks to a month into the school year, talking about a massacre, a mass murder at this Apalache school. So ready to begin when you are.
Dr. Debbie, one of the things, and I know you're from Florida, you're from Miami, and one of the most horrific school shootings in our country's history happened at Parkland School. And supposedly this Colt Gray may have copycatted, or that was his intention, to copycat that shooting. What is it that makes a 14-year-old want to become famous or infamous for something so horrific?
Absolutely, Sergeant Bill. Well, if we're starting with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Parkland shooting case, I was involved in that case for the entirety of the 5 years, beginning, middle, and end. And it's interesting when we look at the past cases of school shooting. And in the Parkland massacre, there were 17 victims. And the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, went on social media days before the atrocity to literally state in such a grandiose manner that there will be an incident at a school in South Florida, and there will be a lot of discussion about it, and everybody will know my name. That was practically verbatim what he said. Yet, interestingly, to me as a criminologist, he didn't self-inflict. He willfully, allowed an local officer in the Broward County community to arrest him. But when we look at some of these other instances and tragedies on school grounds, and we start with Columbine, Klebold, and Harris, 13 decedents. Yet we might think that these two perhaps had suicidal ideation as they self-inflicted. And we look at Adam Lanza and Sandy Hook, 26 decedents. He killed his mother, and he too self-inflicted. But we could almost align this Colt Gray in having some type of interest and intrigue about Nicholas Cruz, but I would add as well the shooter, Ethan Crumley, from the Oxford High School as well. So now we have this dynamic of these three young people, each of whom either was currently or had been a student at the school. And I would suggest that there are commonality among these three, meaning they really were not a part of, Sergeant Bill, any type of group setting. They weren't friendly or popular. They didn't participate in sports, music, drama. They really were the type of individuals that were more apart from rather than a part of. So when we take a look at the mindset really is one of detachment. These kids tend to also be detached from their families. So I know we'll do a deep dive into that as well, but detached from family, detached from the school setting. I would also submit two more theories in criminology that are applicable to the Colt Gray case, to Nicholas Cruz, and to Ethan Crumley, and that would also be the hedonistic theory. Hedonism suggests pleasure, and I think when individuals make a decision that is intentional and purposeful, and it's planned and premeditated, they derive pleasure from beginning, middle, till the end. So a lot to discuss, but those are my initial thoughts.
Wonderful retort there. Excellent. According to the New York Times, let's just give a little update here. Only days after the deadliest school shooting in Georgia history, the 14-year-old suspect is expected to make his first court appearance today. He did. In a community now awash in grief and shock, questions have swirled about what could have motivated the teenager to open fire at Apalache High School in Windsor, Georgia on Wednesday morning. The youth, who was a student at the school, is accused of killing 2 students and 2 teachers. On Thursday, his father was also arrested and charged with second-degree murder and other crimes in connection with the shooting. Officials said that a complex investigation is ongoing and that they may file additional charges. Here is what we know. This is according to the New York Times. The shooter was armed with an AR-15 style rifle. Shortly after 10 a.m. Wednesday, and barely a month into the new school year, gunfire erupted on the campus of Apalache High School, which is roughly 50 miles from downtown Atlanta. The shooter used a black AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. That's according to arrest warrants. The 4 killings happened within minutes. Law enforcement officials said the suspect surrendered to school resource officers and was taken into custody. At the sound of gunshots, the school went into lockdown. The locked classroom doors, as well as the newly installed alarm system, may have helped to prevent further bloodshed. Some students said that they huddled quietly in their classrooms for more than an hour, and many had left their phones behind when they eventually evacuated, making it hard for them to connect with anxious family members. Traffic stalled around the school as parents scrambled to find the children. And as we previously reported, 2 students, Mason Schermerhorn, age 14, Christian Angulo, age 14, and 2 teachers, Richard Aspinall and Christina Aremi, lost their lives, as well as 9 people being wounded. Now, Dr. Debbie, I think that media always want, first of all, they always want to hear immediate information when they realize that investigation takes time, and they won't have all the answers for weeks, months, perhaps. But what they always want to know immediately, and sometimes we never find it out, is motive. What was the motive, Dr. Debbie?
Right. Well, let's start with attention. Believe it or not, I think these kids who participate in such atrocious behavior where they intentionally, purposefully kill other students, their teachers, and really, Sergeant Bill, participate in terror. I often think that we should classify school shootings as domestic terrorism. But I think these students also fall into a category of criminology we refer to as Lilliputian theory. Lilliputian, little. These kids feel little. It has nothing to do with height, with weight, with stature, but has everything to do with their mentality. So because these are the kids who are not a part of, but they are apart from, they want attention. They want people to notice them. I'm here too. Say hi to me. Know my name. And these are kids who are more or less invisible to these other kids. They're not known by name. And so I think that's the first motivation. And then I have a theory that I created. I actually created this theory in relation to the Brian Kohberger case, the Idaho massacre at Kings Road, but I think there are elements that are applicable as well to school shooters. And the acronym is JAR, J-A-R, jealousy, anger, revenge. So I think that tends to be the motivation, that these school shooters, they're jealous of other kids who are friendly and focused and have a peer group and a network. I think their anger builds literally through the years of being ignored and or bullied and or on the outskirts of things. And they decide to take the ultimate revenge in terms of society, the school environment, the family, and they will kill so that people will notice them. And I'd also bring into the conversation, Sergeant Bill, another statement here on the law, which refers to scienter. Scienter means that an individual has knowledge and understanding of their behavior. So I think even though we're referencing ages that are so young, 14 years old for Colt Gray and Ethan Crumley being 15, but really the question is, do they understand the wrongfulness of their actions? Do they have knowledge of what that means to bring an assault rifle to the school setting and to start shooting? So I believe the answer is a high percentile is yes, because only a low percentage of these individuals, less than 2%, is what the data shows, of individuals who go through our criminal justice system who don't understand the wrongfulness of their actions, who don't appreciate or recognize that their behavior is wrong. And then legally, we would classify those individuals as insane. But the majority of whom are sane, they use scienter, they use what we call mens rea, actus reus, guilty mind, guilty action. And truly, I just don't think they care about the consequences. The fact that they don't self-inflict suggests to me it's not suicidal ideation, but it really is the jealousy, anger, revenge outwardly displayed to hurt and harm others that brings them pleasure.
Wow, that's a mouthful there. This brings me to this. The person on the left of the thumbnail we have on the screen is Colin Gray. That's Colt Gray's father. Colin Gray thought it was a good idea to give his mentally ill son, 14 years old, with who Colt Gray lives with him, because the marriage with Colt Gray's mom had broken up, and the mom has drug problems. She was arrested and was found to have a quantity of fentanyl on her, as well as what we would call a crack stem or a crack pipe in her possession. So these were the people who were guiding this young mind, this 14-year-old mind. And what parent would think it's a good idea to give an AR-15 to a mentally ill 14-year-old? And as a result, Dr. Debbie, and I 100% agree with this, the dad was arrested on Thursday, and he is being charged almost as an acting in concert charge with the murders, as well as his son. So this is not new territory. This happened with the Crumley case. Not only were both parents charged, they were both convicted. You want to speak upon that, Dr. Debbie?
Absolutely, 100% agree with you, Sergeant Bill, and with those instances whereby we have parents who are participating in reckless behavior, negligent behavior, and those are intentional terms which lead directly to what manslaughter really is. This father, Colin Gray, along with, as you've stated, Jennifer and James Crumley, faced the Crumleys and now will face Colin Gray, the involuntary manslaughter charge. And that's exactly what it is. It's one's reckless and negligent conduct that leads to the death of another. So who puts an assault rifle into the hand of a juvenile who is not well? It's just wrong. It's outrageous. It's incredulous that it happened and it's happening. And so, yes, we must hold these parents accountable for the wrongfulness of their actions. And that includes the Crumleys, that will include now Colin Gray. And we can even look at Sandy Hook, Adam Lanza. He too, the weapon was purchased by the mother. Sadly, tragically, he used that weapon also before he killed the children and teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary. He first killed his mother. So I think we need to really take a look at what these parents are doing, either their actions or their inactions, and hold them accountable.
You know, Dr. Debbie, as you know, and my audience knows, for 27 years, I was a police officer and sergeant, detective sergeant, NYPD. You live with a gun. A gun is so much part of your life. It's attached to your hip every day you're at work, and you live with it at home. Having said that, you must live with it in a safe manner, right?
Right.
because eventually you're going to have kids, and kids are going to be around that firearm. And I remember when my children were very young, to get rid of their curiosity, I showed them my gun, and they were actually terrified to even touch it or look at it, And I said, I just want to show you this. So all curiosity is gone. And I locked my gun up anyway, so they wouldn't be able to get to it. But I said, if your friends come over our house and they say to you, show us your dad's gun, what are you going to do? I'm going to go get you a mom. I said, great answer. That's exactly what I want you to do, because it may not be your kids. It may be other kids coming into your home. And that was just my thing with gun safety. I lock my gun in a safe. Some people have it right on their nightstand. Whatever anyone does, it's their business. But you got to live with it safely. And in these instances, giving an AR-15, and apparently, I think I have it correct, the father gave him the AR-15. It wasn't just accessible in their home. He gave it to him. What is that saying? What is that? And I listened to some of the hearing they had with the local police, and he was bragging, this year he shot his first deer. All right, great. Hunting, everyone, in that part of the country hunts. Many people hunt throughout this country. But an AR-15, I don't believe that's a deer rifle. I don't think that's what you hunt with.
You're absolutely right, Sergeant Bill. It's absolutely unreasonable, irresponsible, and it was given to Colt Gray as a holiday gift in December of 2023. So I think we're simply going to see more parental liability, wherein parents who are not making the right decisions. I love parents. I'm a parent, and I love my boys, and they know that we have conversations routinely about safety, security, and survival. And that's part of being a good parent. Yes, we would like to say yes to our children, with an asterisk by it. And when I say no to something, it's about a compromise to their safety, security, and survival. And sometimes we simply cannot get that second chance back. And it's really, again, just we shake our heads to understand, and I don't think there is understanding. What is that parent's intention of placing this type of high-powered weapon into the hand of the child? For what? To be a best friend with the child, or to appear cool? It does not make any sense whatsoever to me. But what does make sense as a result of the Crumley case, and that's why it's a historic outcome, to ensure that parents make good decisions and are not reckless and negligent with the conduct of themselves that now manifests and trickles to their children.
Dr. Debbie, the politics behind this is perhaps what continues this carnage. And for there to be no clear-cut, there's a lot of things being done on the security end, but not on the prevention end. And I think one of the things we must differentiate between is active shooters and mass shooters. Because every single weekend in Chicago, 30 or 40 people get shot. No one bats an eye, doesn't even get a story. And probably in many other urban cities across this country. No one cares. But active shooters, it has that, and I'm just saying, where is the differentiation? The active shooter between the mass shooter that shoots up a corner, in John Q. block in any urban center, almost any city in this nation on a weekend. What's the body count? And a story like this, again, it's out of school. It's horrific. An AR-15, that's, they're always calling it an assault weapon. And, we've seen active shooters, and they used to be able to define them much better, usually an active shooter. And most of the time it's a male white. Like that's, I think 85 to 90% of the time it is. And And when it's a kid, it's usually someone who's been bullied, someone's got mental health issues, and they used to define it, but it's changing. The ideology, the mentality, the psychology of the active shooter has changed over the years. And we used to, you mentioned Harris and Klebold from Columbine, two of the most infamous active shooters. It's almost like it started the active shooter wave across this country. And they were bullied. And it was thought that that's the number one reason for an active shooter, kids that are bullied. But I think it's changed over the years, Dr. Debbie. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right, Sergeant Bill. And whether we're talking about, because let's just even start with murder, right? The unlawful killing of another, and whether it's the taking of one life or a double homicide, triple, quadruple, serial murder, mass murder, the commonality, of course, is that the individual wants to take the life of another unlawfully. Now, why is that? And what are we doing to prevent it? So I agree with you on the need, really a need to have conversations about what needs to happen to prevent active shooting in our communities, cities, counties, states, but also to prevent it specifically at the school setting. And so the conversations, of course, can't just be singular. And I think everybody deserves a seat at the table, to include the students themselves, the parents, the teachers, politicians, community leaders, our religious leaders, so that we can figure this out. You know, we look at best practices. Some of the best practices may include installing the electronic devices and the wands and surveillance, so that there's more of an opportunity to prevent these weapons from infiltrating the school system. I know it's controversial. I know even at the university, when I discuss these issues with the students, some of whom think they like that approach and it's necessary. Others think, well, we don't really want to turn our schools into what would appear to be detention centers. But for sure, we need to really instill a belief in young people to see something, say something, because we know so much content throughout the day is discussed on social media, whether it's statements or photographs. But I think the message has to be, if something doesn't look right, sound right, feel right, it has to be reported. And it has to be reported in a way that's safe and secure, where people don't feel that they'll be retaliated against. You know, that's another issue. A lot of times there's information before these tragedies occur, but people are afraid to report, thinking that the shooter may come to them. So there's really no easy answer. I also like the idea, I know in some communities, they're utilizing retired military men and women simply to, you know, be on the grounds of schools and have an extra pair of eyes and ears as volunteers. The mental health piece is a big piece. I don't want to suggest that that's the only issue, but when people have homicidal ideation and they think about killing and they take the steps to kill, we must prevent this and come up with effective strategies.
100%. Cancer Oracle from the chat. I get what you're saying, but they don't care if a group of black people kill up a group of black people. It should be a big deal, but unfortunately, it's not in America. Cancer Oracle, you know something? I don't know specifically what the reason is why mass shootings they just don't give a shit about. And active shooters have a whole different, and you could be right, but I think it's more to do with also the crime element of like in the inner city on a street corner, someone maybe it's a retaliatory shooting for some reason, and the guy just sprays a corner, which I've seen numerous times in my career in Manhattan North Homicide Squad. So I think in that way it's a little bit, but you're right. It should be get the same emphasis as an active shooter, and the fact that it doesn't, people are ignoring it. They're absolutely ignoring it. Oak Island Morky. Yes, now they're going to say that he was bullied in a school he was only at for 2 weeks because he was transgendering. I don't even know if that's true or not. I wasn't aware of that, but thank you for the information. Immature school communities care and neighborhood communities don't care. I think a lot of people in the hood do care. No one wants their corner shot up, Maybe they're helpless to stop it, but I don't think that no matter where you live, you don't want gunfire erupting in the middle of the night or anytime. I would like to know if the students and teachers who lost their lives were targeted or just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Oak Island Morkie, I believe they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but that could change because, again, this happened Wednesday morning. It's Friday. Investigation takes time. Accurate investigation takes even more time. So I'm not going to totally say they weren't targeted, but it appears that they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I want to play a little bit of this from WRAL, be on the screen.
Latest school shooting. 2 students and 2 teachers died at Apalache High School, about an hour northeast of Atlanta. A 14-year-old student is in custody, and authorities say he'll be tried as an adult. NBC's Priya Sridhar is at the school in Winder, Georgia.
I'm here at Apalache High School, where the community is still mourning today. We're learning new information about both the suspect and the victims. The suspect has been identified as 14-year-old Colt Gray, who was a student at the school. And we're now learning that he was actually on the radar of the FBI just last year. They say authorities questioned both him and his father revealing that he did have hunting rifles inside of the house, but that Colt Gray did not have unsupervised access to them. We're also hearing from authorities that he used an AR-15 style weapon in this shooting. We don't have any more information about how he got that weapon or what his potential motive could be. We also know that the 4 deceased victims, 2 of them are 14-year-old students, 2 are math teachers. The remaining 9 victims are being treated in hospitals. 8 of them are students, 1 is a teacher, but they are all expected to survive. We also know that the teenage suspect will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. Back to you.
This was the 45th school shooting so far this year, the deadliest U.S. school shooting since the March 2023 massacre at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, that left 6 people dead.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has identified the gunman as 14-year-old Colt Gray. He's a student here at Apalache High School. He's being charged with murder and will be tried as an adult. Right now, he's being held at a juvenile detention center. We'll get our first look at him at a virtual hearing on Friday. We're hoping to get a better idea of the motive as to why he brought a gun to this high school in the first place.
I'm just still in shock, and I just prayed that he would be okay.
I love you. Part of a flurry of text Erin Clark got from her son at Apalache High School as a shooter opened fire, killing 4 people and wounding 9 others. Clark's son surviving the violence, reuniting with his mom outside the school.
He's not a hugger, and I had to force him to hug me.
Tragically, 14-year-olds Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angelo, as well as teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Ermey, were killed during the shooting. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation revealed the suspected gunman, a 14-year-old student named Colt Gray, began the shooting just after 10 a.m. He was arrested quickly after being confronted by a school resource officer. Right now, officials say there's no obvious connection between Gray and the victims.
This is everybody's worst nightmare. And I just want to offer my sincere condolences and our thoughts and prayers to the families that have lost loved ones.
Wednesday night, members of the community gathered at a local park to pray for those who were hurt and killed, less than a month after school began at the high school of some 1,900 students.
I lived in Winder all my life. I'm 15. I've been here like a long time. I just never thought. That's why my parents came here. It's such a peaceful town, and just nothing ever happened. I didn't think it would be here where I live.
On top of classes being canceled for the rest of the week, we're learning that a football game that was scheduled for Friday, that has also been canceled. Those images we saw yesterday of students who were evacuated out of the school behind me where they were gathered, that is where that game was set to take place. We're also learning that one of those victims who was identified, Aspinwall, he was one of the coaches for this school.
Dr. Debbie, I know you got to go at 3:45. So I have one question that's disturbing, I think, to everyone. He was on the FBI's radar about, I think about a year ago. And that was referred to the local police. He was interviewed as well as his father. What happened?
That's the question, right? And I always like to commend and compliment our local, state, and federal officers. I think in part what happened, which is also what happened in part with Nicholas Cruz, as he too was was alleged to be on the FBI's radar. But I think sometimes, Sergeant Bill, individuals lie directly to law enforcement. And then there may or may not be enough evidence to really make these arrests, but it is definitely worthy of exploration as to how and why the arrest may not have been made in a prevention aspect and how we got to this level. But I do believe that our nearly 1 million local, state, and federal law enforcement officers do their very best day in, day out to keep our cities, our counties, our states safe. And it's more than just them. It's still the community. Hearing this young man speak who grew up in the community saying he never thought it would happen in their community. I think that is probably a common theme and belief that, how could it be happening in my community? And I do a lot of conversations, of course, with parents at all levels at the PTA meetings and such. And I think it's another approach of ostrich in the sand. We can't put the head down to say, well, okay, it happened in this community, but it'll never happen in my community. Or it happened at this family, but it would never impact my family. And that really, isn't going to necessarily be the greatest service, possibly more of a disservice. So we can't be like the ostrich with, not my kid, not my house, not my community, because that shooter could be the one to potentially impact so many lives. And it's just, again, astonishing, Sergeant Bill, that here we are talking about it and we don't have a definitive plan in place as to be able to send kids to school on Monday morning and have assurance that they will come home alive.
Great point. Dr. Debbie, I know you have to go. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're a bucket full of wisdom.
Thank you, Sergeant Bill. Always an honor and privilege to join you. And of course, the viewers are amazing, and I always appreciate the opportunity to interact with them. So thank you for, as you always are, being so caring and kind and smart and thoughtful to bring the programming that really needs to be discussed. It's certainly recognized, respected, and appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Debbie. Have a great day, and we'll talk
Okay.
soon.
Thank you. You as well. Goodbye, everybody.
Someone just asked in the chat. They just moved on. Okay, PhD in nutrition. What determines trying a minor as an adult? PhD in nutrition, certain crimes. Obviously, premeditated murder is one of them, and I think a 13-year-old is the highest age. It goes down to 13, 14, 15. And upward can be tried as an adult for certain specific felonies. And of course, this is one of them. He will be tried by an adult, as an adult. And his father will also be tried. Kyriakos from the chat, real deal. Schools do not have psychologists to monitor problematic students. This could not be the first incident. Well, one of the things Dr. Debbie said, and I'd like to answer it too, is that they were on the FBI's radar. Apparently, he had made some messages on social media on the Discord site, and he talked about shooting up a middle school. And when he was interviewed about that, he denied it, and it wasn't me, and all of that stuff. So it didn't rise to probable cause, so that they could arrest him or arrest his father. So they were monitoring him, but they couldn't make an arrest. So That's the answer to that. Unfortunately, we always want to point blame. Oh, they could have put him in jail. No, they couldn't. They did an investigation, and there wasn't enough there to make an arrest. Folks, this Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed, just hit that subscribe button right on the screen. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels that you can contribute to keep this channel going. What do we know about Colt Gray? Let's play a little bit of this from the Fox 5 News. This is what we know about Colt Gray.
Comes after the Fox 5 I team poured through public records today, trying to learn more about this father and his son.
Late today, the I team obtained a recording of a sheriff's office interview of both Grays, recorded after the FBI received a tip last year about a threat to shoot up a school.
Do you have weapons in the house?
I do.
Are they accessible to him?
They are. I mean, there's nothing loaded, but they are down.
Okay.
We do a lot of shooting. We do a lot of deer hunting. He shot his first deer this year. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything about him saying like that, and I'm gonna be mad as hell if he did. And then all the guns will go away, and they won't be accessible to him. I'm trying to be honest with you. I'm trying to teach him about firearms and safety and how to do it all, and get him interested in the outdoors.
Now, that's just a portion of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office interview.
Fox 5 I team reporter Johnny Edwards says it's part of an emerging picture of a troubled family and some missed warning signs.
From what we're learning, Colt Gray's home life was fraught with problems. Police reports and court records concerning his parents, Colin and Marcy Gray, reveal a broken family. Colt living with his father, his 2 younger siblings living with their mother. Marcy Gray was arrested late last year for scratching her husband's truck. Then when they arrested her, police say they found her with methamphetamines, fentanyl, and a glass pipe. She was sentenced to 46 days in jail. Also last year, Colt Gray and his father received a visit from Jackson County Sheriff's investigators. They were looking into an FBI tip. Apparently, someone on a gaming app had threatened to shoot up a middle school. They believed Colt may have been involved. According to incident reports, the then 13-year-old told investigators he didn't make those threats. Here's a sheriff's investigator talking to Colt Gray.
I promise I will never say something. So you haven't used Discord in a few months?
Oh, no.
And you're saying you didn't say anything like that?
No, the only thing I have is TikTok, but I just go around there and watch videos.
Colt's father told police he did have guns in the house. He said they were accessible but not loaded. He said he and his son would go hunting and shooting together. He said he wanted his son away from video games and into the outdoors. Colt even shot his first deer that year. Colin Gray also told police his son had problems at school, including being picked on.
I've been up to school, like I'm on first name. I just was up there 3 days ago for his finals, talking to the principal, like, look, we talk about it quite a bit. All the school shootings, things that happen.
Yeah,
scary. Are you getting picked on at school? He is. He's getting picked on at school, and is everything okay? That's why I keep going up there.
After that talk, police left. They weren't able to substantiate the tip. Here's where a breakdown may have occurred. The Jackson County Sheriff tells us she believes her department alerted Jackson County schools, telling them keep monitoring Colt Gray. In an email obtained by the I-Team, a sheriff's captain tells the FBI, we have made area schools aware and will monitor this subject. But by that point, Colt Gray had already finished 8th grade at Jefferson Middle School. By 9th grade, he and his father had moved to a different county, and that's where he started at Apalache High School in Barrow. This is what we're still trying to figure out, if that alert from Jackson County carried over to the new school districts, and what would monitoring even mean? We don't know. Johnny Edwards, Fox 5 News.
So there you have it. He was being monitored at a middle school, and then he went to the high school. Did someone perhaps drop the ball there? That could have happened. We're not sure. Maui Swift gifted 5 Police Off the Cuff memberships. Maui Swift, thank you so much. You're a gem. I've been following this channel for many years. I really appreciate everything you do. You know, I want to ask truthfully for the people in the chat, how many people in the chat can say that they were never bullied during their whole high school career, during the whole time they spent in high school? Can anyone say they were never bullied, never picked on, never called names, maybe I'm stretching it out a little bit too much. Did any of you become an active shooter? I guess not. I didn't either. I was picked on, bullied by older kids. But I think it's how you respond to it. And perhaps Colt Gray didn't have a solid family to go home to talk about, because as you saw, his mother and father broke up. His mother appeared to have anger as well as drug problems. She was caught when she was arrested. She was in possession of fentanyl, and she was in possession of a crack pipe, a glass stem. That's what that is. That's a crack pipe. So that's why perhaps he wasn't able to deal with it, because he didn't have a solid home to go to people or solid adults. His father doesn't sound too tightly wrapped based on that interview. I'm going to play a little bit of yesterday's press conference, and this was right after the shooting.
Come back this afternoon and present you with a little more of a timeline of the events that have taken place here today, and what we know up to this point with the investigation. At approximately 10:20 a.m. this morning, the Broward County Sheriff's Office received alerts about reports of an active shooter and radio traffic to school resource officers concerning the same concern, or having the same concern. Within minutes, law enforcement was on scene, as well as 2 school resource officers assigned here to the school, who immediately encountered the subject within just minutes of this report going out. Once they encountered the subject,
I think that's one of the important things that happened here that differed from that horrible shooting at Parkland, where the school resource officer, in my opinion, didn't do his job, and he was cleared in court. But to me, that guy was useless. And as a result, he didn't save any lives except his own. And in this instance, the school resource officers immediately confronted the active shooter and stopped any more potential carnage that was about to happen. From the chat, Meyer, you do not have to suffer for a mental illness to benefit from a therapist, a psychologist. It is healthy to take care of your mental health at all times, especially during hard times at home. Meyer, I can't agree with you more. I think it's absolutely, and I think perhaps school guidance counselors, and I'm sure they do, get involved in the lives of troubled kids at the school, specifically kids that are having problems at home. To the night owl, I was never bullied at school, nor ever bullied anyone. That's good to hear. But I think it's, look, I was in an organization for 27 years, and you could consider some of the stuff going on almost bullying, but really was ribbing, what we used to call it, where cops had vicious senses of humor and teasing senses of humor. And it's not the same perhaps as bullying, but that could be considered in one way. We were adults, and, so what happens and how people receive that, how people deal with that is very important. And, you introduce guns into the life of a 14-year-old that's having many problems. I don't think it's a very good idea.
Subject immediately surrendered to these officers, and he was taken into custody. Additionally, what I want you to know as of now, there are 4 individuals who are deceased from this incident, 9 that have been taken to local hospitals with various injuries. Of those that are deceased, 2 were students and 2 were teachers here at the school. The priority right now for us within this investigation is to gather all the facts, to make sure that we're accurate with it, because this is a murder investigation.
Folks, very difficult, to have all the information immediately. And of course, the press demands to know everything, and it can't possibly known. I'm going to go right. This is the local sheriff. I think the guy's really good. I think he's a great role model for the kids, and he said all the right things.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support they give me today, to give this office and give this staff. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. I'm proud of this school system. My heart hurts for these kids. My heart hurts for our community. But I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county. I want that to be very clear and known. Love will prevail over what happened today. I assure you of that. It is very early as to what happened. Governor Kemp reached out to me and has provided me every single resource that he has to make sure justice prevails. I don't know why it happened. I may not ever know. We may not ever know. But I ask that you and our community lift up our schools, lift up our public safety, and that, again, we do not let this hateful event prevail as to what happened today.
So that's the local sheriff. I think his message is well received. You cannot let hate rule the roost. Getting back to normal after a situation like this, just think of the trauma that young kids go through when they're something like this happens at your school. A school is supposed to be a place of learning and of safety, and that you feel safe around your friends, your teachers, the professionals that work at a school. And when that peacefulness and that safety is obliterated by someone with an AR-15 just shooting random people. I'm going to play a little bit of the hearing today. This is the court appearance of Colt Gray, and we'll just listen to a little bit of this.
As everyone certainly is aware, considerable interest in what has occurred in our community in the last several days. For that reason, the court has seen fit under Rule 22 of the Uniform Superior Court rules to allow media outlets to record some of these proceedings. However, under those rules, the court has set in place certain limitations, and I just want everyone to know that the media has been informed of that, and I'm confident that they will comply with that. But otherwise, there is to be no filming or recording by any members of the public or any other individual other than those authorized specifically by the court in its signed ruling. Are we ready, counsel, to begin and bring the defendant in?
State's ready, Your Honor.
All right.
Defense is ready.
All right. All right, good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Colt Gray?
Sir.
My name is Curry Mingledorf. I'm assigned to preside over this morning's proceedings. Mr. Gray, I do need to inquire as to whether you're able to read and write the English language.
Yes, sir.
All right. I also want to inform you, I want to ask you, do you understand that you have the right to be represented by an attorney in these proceedings?
Yes, sir.
And you are, in fact, represented today, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Zane Harmon, you're here on behalf of this defendant, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And you understand that you have the right to be continuously represented throughout this proceeding, and if you cannot afford to hire counsel, then this court is obligated under the Constitution to provide counsel for you without cost to you. All right. I am going to inform you of a few other matters, and I'm not going to ask you anything, just inform you. So one is, I want to make sure that you are aware that you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to say anything at all. And it's important to understand that because anything you might say could be used against you at further proceedings associated with your case. I want to inform you of the charges that you currently face. In essence, you are charged with 4 counts of felony murder, as outlined in the state warrants that have been issued against you. I want to make you aware that the maximum penalty for felony murder, so for each count, the maximum penalty is that you could be punishable by death, by imprisonment for life, without parole, or by imprisonment for life, with the possibility of parole. If you have any questions about these charges, then I would urge you to discuss those with your attorney. I would invite you, Mr. Harmon, to inform the court as to whether there's a request for bond at this time.
At this time, Your Honor, there is not a request for bond. We will file the appropriate motions if that becomes necessary.
All right. An indictment by the grand jury for most felony offenses or accusations, well, you have the right to receive an indictment for these offenses. And I assume Mr. Brad Smith is here on behalf of the DA's office, or he is our district attorney, and he's accompanied by Ms. Patricia Brooks, who is his chief assistant. A preliminary hearing, you'll have the right also to a preliminary hearing, unless you make a bond, which of course at this point there's no bond being requested, or unless you waive such a hearing. You have the right to a speedy and public trial by a judge or a jury. You have the right to confront and cross-examine all witnesses. You have the right to call witnesses on your own behalf and testify in your own defense if you so choose. As you sit here in this courtroom today, under the law, you are presumed innocent. Your refusal to testify at any point in any proceeding will not be used against you in determining whether you are guilty or not guilty. Counsel, let me just inquire as to whether there are any other items that the court should address before we conclude this preliminary hearing.
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Well, I do have one piece of information to convey to the court. There was a development yesterday afternoon that makes it necessary for our office to have alternate counsel appointed, and arrangements have already been made in that regard. I've already explained that to Mr. Gray. Alternate counsel will be appointed by the end of the day today.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Donna C. Graves. All right. Then with that, this hearing is concluded.
So that was the hearing this morning for Colt Gray, facing, of course, 4 charges of murder. And if there's any other good news in this case, is that his father, Colin Gray, is also being charged with murder. And I don't know if he, in all 4 instances, has he been charging 4 counts like Colt Gray. But I think it's a good strategy for the law to use to make the parents maybe, but the parent in this case, because Colt Gray lived with his father, Colin, to make him responsible, make him criminally responsible, because his actions were absolutely irresponsible, in my opinion. Absolutely irresponsible, allowing a 14-year-old with mental health issues to have access to an AR-15 style rifle when he had indicated some bad things that he might do, shoot up a middle school. And because they couldn't prove that, he was never taken into custody. But how about perhaps law enforcement, and I'm not blaming them, but perhaps in some of these instances, and I think that the law is pretty stringent, they can't just go, they would need probable cause to remove the weapons from the home. But that might be warranted in some of these cases. So, folks, I thought I would bring this to you, this active shooting. And we always want to speak on behalf of the victims. Mason Schermerhorn, age 14, a student. Christian Angulo, age 14, a student. Richard Aspinwall, a math teacher and a football coach. Christina Arimi, a math teacher at the school. Those are the 4 people that lost their lives at Apalache High School in regards to this active shooting. Our prayers are with them and their family, and we also pray for the 9 people who were wounded in this incident. Absolutely horrific. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.